Killing the exponential R0 lockdown lie. Immunizing the public mind. Sadly, the public is proving incredibly susceptible to anything the government puts out, but you can do better. Note to censors: we use only government data. If you have a problem with the results, speak to the government. Remember this?
I want to play a clip for you that's been viewed more than 26 million times.
One interview, 26 lies or misrepresentations in the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds. See our Bill Gates coronavirus Fox News Chris Wallace video. And 26 million people viewed it and absorbed the misinformation without missing a beat. Fighting that kind of media power is all but impossible. But we can immunize the few people who want the truth based on the facts, not the government dogma. It's scary how effective that dogma is. Offer an alternative and the public turns rabid. And the one thing above all is sewn deep into their brains, that flattening the curve is all due to lockdown. No, as our viewers know, it's a natural function of the viral propagation, which most closely resembles a normal distribution, single value or cumulative for daily cases or total cases. There is only one definition of exponential, and it is this: f of x equals ab to the x, where a and b are constant. The only legitimate variant is f of x equals ab to the x plus c, which reduces to a times b to the c times b to the x, aka capital A, b to the x. And that looks like power of b to the x in Excel, or b to the x times x, b to the x times x, etc. And graphically there is only one class of curves which aren't curves at all on log scales, which are exponential. A straight line on log scales is the only curve which is exponential. No wonder linear scales are so popular. They hide this one key property. Only one of these curves is exponential. Can you tell which one? Of course not. On a linear scale it's almost impossible. And as an added bonus, it's scarier too. Only the grey line is exponential. The moment you see a curve on log scales, it ain't exponential. But does that stop people using the exponential meme to scare you? Of course not.
Well, this is a nightmare scenario because human-to-human transmissible respiratory viruses can grow exponentially.
No wonder the gullible and loyal public soak it up when philanthropists like Bill Gates and eminent professors like Gary Hanington assure them of its relevance to virus growth. Even if, like Gary Hanington, they try not to lie, just let exponential and a doctored graph do the lying for them. And if you call someone on it, they say, "Oh, we didn't mean mathematically exponential, but just it goes up like really rapidly." Excuse me? So your scientific threat of 530,000 deaths is just a figure of speech? I don't think so. It got us put into lockdown. And as Bill Gates says, it's a nightmare scenario. It would be if it were true, but since viruses do not grow exponentially, and the public has shown images of it not being exponential, it's not a nightmare scenario, just a fabricated one. But just in case you wonder if Bill Gates really meant exponential, the kind that just races up and keeps on racing up.
And, if we had kept on going to work, traveling like we were, that curve would never bend. And
that curve would never bend. Yep, straight line on a log scale, the only scale on which an exponential graph is straight and never bends, so he knows what he's talking about. But wait.
Until you had the majority of the people infected.
Until you had the majority of the people infected. Majority of the people, Imperial College, 80% infected. Seeing a common message here? But hey, wait a minute. That curve would never bend until. That curve line never bends full stop. Not if it's exponential. That curve would never bend until you had the majority of the people infected. So this curve that goes straight up, exponential, will bend, but only when the majority of people are infected. So it's not exponential, but the virus will infect the majority of people without intervention, and it won't bend before that time. Gee, now I wonder if that's true, or did Gates just tell a porky? And of course all the charts have shown curvature on log scales long before the majority of people were infected, and regardless of lockdown, Western style, which has proven remarkably ineffective, as our viewers already know. But Uncle Bill is still talking.
And then a massive number seeking hospital care and lots of deaths.
And lots of deaths. UK government 530,000 deaths. Imperial College 510,000 UK deaths. 2.2 million US deaths. Wow, it all sounds so familiar.
You know, we've had to use quarantine, which is
Had to use quarantine. Imperial College, massive intervention. UK government, lockdown. And did Trump lecture you on this, or was it a philanthropist donor to Imperial College and Ferguson? Yeah.
you know, old thing back from the days of the plague.
Days of the plague. Nice plug for fear there. My God, we certainly don't want the plague, do we?
As our primary tool.
As our primary tool. Yeah, never mind that we already have a highly effective primary tool. It's called the immune system, and anyone with blood oxygen over 95% and without contraindicators, allergies, heart or lung disease. But hey, I'm not a doctor, am I? And Bill Gates isn't an epidemiologist, but hey, here he is, the agenda's primary spokesman. Only the agenda's primary spokesman? Hell, we don't do theory here, just the facts, ma'am.
Fortunately, if we use that well enough, we should, towards the end of this month, start to see those numbers level off.
Numbers level off, and there it is. The virus will continue on straight up without intervention, lie, but lockdown will get the straight line exponential to curve. This is brilliant misdirection. Now, anytime the virus does what it's going to do anyway, which is curl over just like the government illustrations tell you it will, just like the early nations charts show it does, but now the gullible public thinks it's because of the lockdown. It's brilliant. Genius of misdirection. Never mind that the sun was going to rise anyway, never mind that the stone was going to fall to earth anyway, now the government can claim to have caused the sun to rise and stones to fall to earth. And all they need is that one stunningly simple deception, straight up until the majority of the people are infected. But get lockdown in, and then they can take credit for something the curve not only was going to do, but was already doing anyway. How many times do I reference curlover in our videos? Just one example of curlover in a non-lockdown country, and it's all over, the whole exponential lie revealed. So hey, who's just watched our latest chart update, or the one before that, or before that? Everyone knows that Sweden was the big no-lockdown hope, right? So what does Bill Gates say?
You know, that curve would never bend until you had the majority of the people infected.
That curve would never bend until you had the majority of the people infected. So that's the Bill Gates conspiracy theory. The virus keeps going, the exponential curve never bends until the majority of the people are infected. So let's see. G. Log scales and curves for Sweden cases, blue, and deaths, red. And never mind curving over only when the majority of the people are infected. It's curving from the very beginning. These are normalized to 100 million population, so we can treat Sweden as having 100 million people in this chart. Not that we really need it, because let's see. It's bending at 10 to 100 people. It's bending at 1,000 people. It's bending at 10,000 people. And it's bending at 100,000 people. It's bending the whole damn way. And all the time the trolls and critics are loyal and well-meaning and obedient, have been spouting exponential and coming up with excuses. The R0 has changed. Or saying it's because of lockdown. Sweden had no lockdown and got pilloried for it. It is by no means the worst hit nation in the world, and frankly, as our viewers know, there's a strange phenomenon whereby European countries and the UK and US get hit massively harder by the virus. And Sweden seems to be taking some of that hit too. The virus is just a virus. It isn't political. It doesn't play games, but politicians, sure they play games. Maybe they can explain this. The closer you are to the UK, EU, US, New York core, the harder you get hit. And not just a little harder, but a lot harder. The rest of the world, including lying third world countries like Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Iraq, Iran and Malaysia, they get hit with 0.3 days of normal deaths. And they're done. Even European countries like Greece get away with numbers way below Hubei, as you can see below. But you get close to the US, New York, EU, UK axis and oh boy, that virus goes for you. It attacks more aggressively, starting with Canada, then the US, then EU.core, then UK, then Belgium, then the state of New York, until it gets to virus central New York City. The rest of the world, ex-UK, US, EU, gets away with 0.3 days deaths. New York City has 86 days worth, and it's still going. And what's amazing, that ascending relationship to the heart of Western greed, some people still don't get it. It's a virus. It doesn't do power or greed or games. There is no reason to treat different nations differently. Australians and Malaysians aren't genetically different from us, and New York City and the UK are in lockdown. And it doesn't matter one iota. Those whose minds are closed, those who are so dependent on their parent government that they cannot allow themselves to conceive of it lying, they will go to any length to refuse to see the truth. We've been lied to from the very beginning. The virus is a massive threat. It's growing exponentially till the majority are infected. Massive deaths. Only massive intervention can slow it down. Lockdown. We've been lied to from the very beginning. The virus is a massive threat. No, the world outside the US, EU, UK axis is doing fine, thank you. But only because they went into lockdown. Oh my God, you see? It just won't die. We'll get there. Massive deaths. No. No lockdown Sweden, if that's the only country you can believe. They're not massive. Here, look again. Someone is playing silly buggers with Sweden cases and deaths, but that's 30,000 per 100 million population, or about 12 days deaths. That is not the end of the world deaths, not by a long shot. And you should wonder very hard just how come a virus that's supposed to grow exponentially is going flat. Even in Europe there are countries with better things to do than play the EU, UK, US games. To the rest of the world we look like idiots taken in and taken down by our own politicians. Or a virus that in the rest of the world actually grows normally is totally abusing normal. The virus doesn't abuse normal. Politicians do. Get a clue. Only massive intervention lockdown can slow it down. The two biggest failures in the world are lockdown Britain and lockdown New York. Coincidence? Do you even understand that lockdown in Britain has not avoided one case, not saved one life? If you sprinkle magic fairy dust on a bowling ball and claim it changes direction and it doesn't change direction, did your magic fairy dust work? If the ball was already curling to the left, then you didn't make it curl to the left. UK projection was locked way back on March the 23rd, and the UK curve has not deviated one iota except now to exceed it. UK growth rates slowed due to lockdown? They were already slowing. That's what virus propagations and normal distributions do anyway. The government sprinkled magic fairy dust in the public's eyes, and every day they sprinkle more and the public just eat it up, even though they're defending people who have deprived them of their liberty, deprived them of their work, and destroyed this country's economy. All because people think the government are saving lives. They're not saving lives, they're saving you. But saving you for what?
It is fair to say things won't go back to truly normal until we have a vaccine that we've gotten out to basically the entire world. It is fair to say things won't go back to truly normal until we have a vaccine that we've gotten out to basically the entire world. Until we have a vaccine, that we've gotten out to basically the entire world.
Anyone would think you didn't have an immune system. Anyone would think it was healthy people dying, not 99% Italy with existing conditions, or 91% in the UK with existing conditions. The reason healthy people aren't allowed to get on with their lives has nothing to do with medical science and everything to do with medical sales. Healthy people getting on with their lives in complete freedom might wonder why they needed a vaccine. And second wave? What second wave? But China lied. It is exhausting dealing with lie after lie after lie. No, if China had lied, Asia wouldn't be doing far better than China, and most of Europe wouldn't only be doing a bit worse. Everywhere you go, lies, but not from China. Exponential. None of those charts are exponential. Everywhere you go, lies, but not from China. Lockdown is working. No, it isn't. And because some things will just never be counted no matter what, I'm going to take you on a tour, a world tour. We're going to go on a world tour of 214 countries looking for that mythical beast, Exponential. Let me tell you what you'll find on this tour. First, we'll tell you that the average number of deaths per population is 0.00453% or 1 in 22,079. A long way from the 1% deaths that Imperial College COVID-19 response team threatened us with. Compare that to a 9 per thousand typical mortality in a Western nation. And bizarrely, third world nations supposedly have better than that. Can't figure that out myself, so I just stick to a Western 9 per thousand. That means that compared to a 0.9% mortality risk from normal life is proving to be 198 times as dangerous as COVID-19. It takes us right back to our March 24th presentation where we pointed out that COVID-19 at Hubei level of deaths was 91 times less dangerous than ordinary life for an 18-year-old, 444 times less dangerous for a 45-year-old, and 218 times less dangerous for a 75-year-old. How strange that the whole world outside the US, UK, EU power centres should be getting the same results still. And far from everyone getting infected, the Hubei level of infection in terms of cases was 0.11% or 1 in 870. And here we find that the world average is 0.093% or 1 in 1081, very much in line with that. China didn't lie. The West has done nothing but lie. But don't take my word for it. Here's the calculations using the World Health Organization data download. Check them yourself and go back to the source data even. That's a lot of countries, and yes, we really are going to go through them all, but fast, and it'll be fun, trust me. We'll do it in sections, and all you need to notice is one thing. Are you looking at a hump or at an exponential straight line? We've already blown off the Bill Gates conspiracy theory that the curve, exponential straight line, would never bend until you had the majority of the people infected. With the Sweden chart, it was bending from the get-go, 10 cases per 100 million population. Now we're going to just show you that the world is full of humped curves, normal or cousins thereof, with not an exponential curve overwhelming a country in sight. You will see on the right a recent nascent humped charts where the curve goes up in an exponential-like manner, which of course is what Gary Hanington used to imply that the virus grew exponentially, though he couldn't bring himself to say so directly. Tough. He falsified the message by specifically eliminating 4 charts, 2 of which would have blown exponential out of the water, the very point of his article. Just like Bill Gates, but without the balls to lie directly to the people. They still got the message, and his intent to deceive is noted. Here's a summary of what you'll see then. It won't mean much, but I'll translate. 214 countries, 169 of which, 79%, will have a hump feature, which means it will never go to infinity, let alone beyond. 156 of which 73% have the hump as the dominant feature, 38, 18% having an ascending curve as the dominant feature. That ascending curve you will see at the right, where we'll expect it to turn into a humped curve. We're going to be looking at a history of daily cases, so a humped curve, not an S-curve, where it climbs, curls over, then levels off. There are also 20 charts where the data is sporadic, so neither humped nor ascending, but too sporadic to be of interest either to us or to the country that was so little touched by the virus. Could that change? Of course, but that's 9%. The rest of the world is pretty much done with the virus, except for Western games, that is. In fact, the crisis was over before even the first Boris Johnson press conference, or whatever it was, of 3rd of March. The crisis is over the moment you see the virus curl over, so you know, guess what? It's not going to infinity, or 100%, or 80%, or even a meaningful fraction of that. 1 in 1081 worldwide, or 0.093%. So sit back and enjoy the ride. It's just going to be a lot of graphs, one every second or so, with simple introductory slides to highlight the different groups we'll be showing. Broadly speaking, look for the hump, or at least notice the damn thing doesn't go flying off the top of the screen in a straight line, the way Bill Gates told you it would. Gosh, by April the 5th, he should have known better. By March the 3rd, he should have known better. As could Boris Johnson. Gee, do you think they lied? So here we go. First batch, normal or humped, but with an extended drop-off, extended post-peak as we call it in our chart updates. They're clearly not reaching for the skies, but they're reluctant to come down as well. Not by coincidence, several are in the US, UK, EU axis. Here we go. The next batch are the cream of the crop, unmistakably humped, plenty of data, typically larger countries. They're also the ones where the lockdown apologists have wet dreams. Lockdown did it! In any rational society, if every curve is either humped, 80% basically, or nascent, starting up the side, then it would be exponentialists who would have to justify their conspiracy theory, which is already debunked the moment you see a curve. But we don't live in rational times or a rational society. Anyway, here we go. The next lot, and there's a lot of them, there's just a whole lot of humping going on. Don't sweat it, just enjoy the ride. Ain't no crazy ascending to the moon charts here, so no, exponentialists not welcome either. Here we go. So far it's basically been one hump, that's all the virus is good for, mainly it seems, so much for second wave. But what's interesting here is that actually you can get charts with double humps. Bacterian? Or is that Bactrian? Or a dromedy? I can never remember. There's even a couple with 4, and it makes perfect sense that you'll have pockets or areas of infection. But guess what? They all die out. So much for a massive threat to our society. Now, if you want to talk massive threat, let's talk politicians. But here you go. The next batch is interesting as their dominant feature is the nascent curve to the right, climbing hard, but they're already humped once. And now a bunch that are simply nascent, starting out, the kind of chart Gary Hanington loved to misrepresent, carefully selecting them and not the charts that were anything but exponential. I'm sure he's not alone in his spin. We'll take a look around in due course, but for now... And then finally, our last bunch where the data is so sparse and sporadic that it's meaningless to call them either humped or ascending nascent. That's it. Now that's pretty incredible if you think about it. You've just scanned the entire world's COVID-19 experience for cases. And far from finding a world in crisis or cases climbing to heaven, what did you find? Gosh, hump after hump after hump. So many I doubt even Hugh Hefner could keep up. So next time some drooling government loyalists start spouting, "It's only curled over because of lockdown," pat them on the head, smile and walk away. They're mind-controlled morons, not to put too fine a point on it. This isn't about winning them over, it's about showing you that the whole world is humped, while our world is... The rest of the world beyond the EU, US and UK axis is enjoying a 0.3 days deaths COVID-19 virus. We're suffering under a conspiracy theory that has been promulgated by Imperial College Bill Gates, Gary Hanington, Boris Johnson, Justin Trudeau, and which enjoys the full machinery of the state. We are, to use a technical term, buggered. But at least you have the satisfaction of knowing that we're taking it from lying, sycophantic, sociopathic, ignorant, arrogant, greedy buggers. And hey, who knows, maybe someday we really will manage to put one of them in jail. Didn't manage it with Cheney, Rumsfeld, Crystal or Rove, or Blair or Campbell, but here's hoping. And oh yeah, we wouldn't want you to think that we edited Bill Gates' words to be more incriminating. He's plenty self-incriminating as is. So here's him laying out why you're in lockdown on false pretenses, and it only takes a minute.
That was Bill Gates back in 2015, 5 years ago, warning about precisely the kind of threat we're all facing right now.
Well, this is a nightmare scenario because human-to-human transmissible respiratory viruses can grow exponentially. And, you know, if we had kept on going to work, traveling like we were, you know, that curve would never bend until you had the majority of the people infected and then a massive number seeking hospital care and lots of deaths. So, you know, we've had to use quarantine, which is a, you know, old thing back from the days of the plague, as our primary tool. Fortunately, if we use that well enough, we should, towards the end of this month, start to see those numbers level off.
I'm still Andrew May, the 6-year-old Brit, mathematician, financier, technologist, husband, biker, pilot, healer, whatever. Feel free to get in touch, Andrew at peerlessreads.com or andrew@amather.com. Either should get to me.